practitioners went to appeal to the Chinese government. They were put into prisons, but they refused to disclose their names and addresses. It was very possible that their organs were harvested. Chen Qian said, "Do you know what I mean? These organs are from people related to the year 2003. We had no names of those people, but only had their assigned names."
他们这些呢，前些年因为法轮功学员上访没报姓名的，他们偷偷关起来了。这些没有登记也没注册。
啊，这里面像这里面的也很正常，知道吗？他这就没留，我跟你说，他这里面没留下姓名，他都留代号，你明白吗？
对对对。
他是像这些你不留姓名的全部代号，我这个比你明白，全部都有代号留档案，知道吗？
这样的，那他光有代号的话，那应该还有真实名字的档案也是在里面。
真实名字查不出来的话，他只能留代号，知道吗？还有根据那个手印儿，个人的手印儿，他根据那个来，知道吗？
那就等于是把他们这些人编了号关起来了，对不对？
那肯定的，你像那些他不编号，那到时候不乱套了吗？什么根据都没有，那哪行啊？
这个人，我是07年。
I interviewed this person in 2007. The organ harvesting issue was an open secret at that time. You can think about it, how severe this issue was. That's why I felt very depressed. From his tone, I felt he did this as a regular routine business, and they did this with a large amount of organs, each clearly priced. When I talked to him, he asked for 230,000 Chinese yuan for one kidney. To make him believe me, I told him I will pay 250,000 yuan for it. When those doctors responded to our interviews, they answered so normally and so directly, especially in their earlier investigations. Some doctors, for example, the doctor from Shanghai Changzheng Hospital, just directly stated that their organs were all harvested from this type of people, Falun Gong practitioners. Of course, after we released some of our investigation reports, later, some hospitals dared not directly say it anymore.
Southern Weekly, one of the popular newspapers in China published by the CCP Guangdong office, published an article in March 2010 titled, "The Maze of Organ Donation, Organs Source Unknown." The article said, year 2000 was a milestone year for organ transplants in China. In 2000, there were 10 times more liver transplants than in 1999. This number again tripled in 2005. If the data was correct, this meant that the annual liver transplant number increased by 30 times within 6 short years. This was a horrible increase. So what's the actual situation? Wang Zhiyuan and his team began their investigation. They calculated the number of hospitals that conducted organ transplants in China through an internet search. They also counted the number of liver and kidney transplants based on the statistics from the Chinese government. They came to shocking conclusions.
After 1999, the organ transplant quantity in China explosively increased from 2 perspectives. One was the total number of the hospitals doing organ transplants. Before 1999, there were only 19 hospitals that could transplant organs. The number of hospitals was increased by more than 20 times to more than 500 hospitals in 2005. Another one was the total number of liver transplants. There were only 135 liver transplants in total for the 20 years prior to 1999. For the 8 years between 1991 and 1998, there were a total of 78 cases of liver transplants. However, from 1999 to 2006, it's 14,085. The number multiplied by more than 180 times. What would you call an explosive increase? This is an explosive increase.
The explosive increase of organ transplants in China had gradually made international impact. In February 2006, Phoenix Weekly published an article reporting that the number of foreigners who came to China for organ transplants dramatically increased after 2002. The article said, based on the investigation of South Korea Organ Transplant Association, in 1999, 2000, and 2001, the number of Koreans who went to China for organ transplantation were only 2, 1, and 4, respectively. But starting from 2002, the number dramatically increased. The report cited a Korean director in a Beijing organ transplantation center. There are about 70 to 80 Koreans accepting organ transplantation in big hospitals in Tianjin, Beijing, Shanghai, and Hangzhou every month. Plus those accepting organs in middle or small hospitals, there are about 1,000 Koreans receiving organs in China every year. Furthermore, Koreans started a trend to go to China to receive organ transplants worldwide. Patients from Japan, Malaysia, India, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, as well as the US and Canada, all flocked to China for transplants. How can a country's organ transplantation industry explode in just a few years? This is indeed a frightening matter. As Dr. Wong puts it, this is not like textiles being processed, which can be done by working overtime to increase the amount of production. This is an increase of human organs, one organ at a time. So where did these organs come from? In November 2005, the World Health Organization held a Western Pacific Regional Conference in the Philippines. Huang Jiefu, at the time the Deputy Ministry of China's Ministry of Health, was at the conference and for the first time said that China's transplanted organs mostly came from death row inmates. Only a few months later, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs overturned Huang Jiefu's words. On March 28, 2006, the spokesman for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Qin Gong, emphatically said during a routine press conference that using death row inmates for organ transplants was very rare. Then, April 10, 2006, the spokesman for the Ministry of Health, Mao Chunan, said during the ministry's routine press conference that the major sources of organ transplants in China come from voluntary donation from citizens. Within 2 years, these Communist Party officials said conflicting things on different occasions. They said organs came from death row inmates. Then they denied it. Then they said the organs were donated. Then what is the actual truth?
Huang Jiefu once publicly stated that the number of kidney transplants was 5,500 to 10,000. They publicly admitted that there was about 10,000 cases each year for liver and kidney transplants.
Since 2007, death row inmates can only be executed upon review and approval by the Supreme People's Court. So in each year, how many death row inmates will China's Supreme People's Court review? According to an article on China's QQ.com titled, Data from Death Row Inmates You Should Know, from July 2, 2013 to September 30, 2014, China Judgment's website published 152 death penalty cases. Among them, 147 cases were approved, and 5 cases were not approved to apply the death penalty. In total, 165 criminals were approved to receive the death penalty. The report emphasized that the data source was from China Judgment's website, which is the official website of China's Supreme People's Court. If the Supreme People's Court statistics are correct, then from July 2013 to September 2014, there were only 165 death row inmates executed in China. According to CCP state-owned media reports, from 2015, China will stop using organs from death row inmates completely and use only donated organs. So what is the current state of organ donations in China today? Yangtze Evening News is a municipal evening newspaper with the largest circulation in China. A report by Yangtze Evening News on February 25, 2011. After becoming one of the first 10 cities with experimental organ donation systems in places since March of 2011, Nanjing City, Jiangsu Province, did not receive a single voluntary organ donation. In the last 20 years, there were only 3 people who donated organs. In order to understand the organ donation status in 2015, the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong conducted a phone interview of the Red Cross organ donation agencies in Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, and other large cities in China from December 6th through the 17th, 2015. Subject: Employee of Beijing Red Cross. Time: December 6th, 2015.
您是那个北京那个市红十字会是吧？
对对对，我们就是值班的人员。
哦，哎，我想问一下，就是因为我那个是有一个亲戚吧，要做那个移植啊，那医院都说那个就是红十字会呀、就是说你们这边就是说有都是这边捐的哈、我就想问一下，那我们在这边红十字会这里哈、就是那个有捐献的吗？
您是指的那个器官捐献吗？
啊，对，器官捐献。
我们是北京市红十字会，现在这个工作我们还正在筹备阶段。
Subject: Employee from Tianjin Red Cross. Time: December 11th, 2015.
我就想问一下，你们这里那个捐献有多少人捐呢？
什么意思？就是从建户到现在有多少人捐是吗？
对对对，对，有多少人？
有170多位。
啊，你们
是有
对，这里面包不包括那个尸体捐献呢？
啊，不包括，我们这只是那个都是健康的人给那个患者去捐献，对。
那从什么时候捐了100多个捐了几年呢？哪一年？
从03年开始。
2003年呐。
啊，对。
2003年到现在捐了100多个了哈。
对。
Subject: Employee of Red Cross Organ Donation Office in Pudong District, Shanghai. Time: December 17th, 2015.
到现在捐了几个？
上海市实现了5例。
哦，实现了5例哈。
你说捐献这种用各个其他市的情况我不知道，实现了5例。
哦，就是咱们上海市实现了5例是吧？
对。
This is an application for a liver or kidney transplant at Transplantation Department of the Shanghai Changzhong Hospital. It says clearly on the application that the waiting time for a liver transplant is on average 1 week. Claimed as Asia's largest transplantation center, Tianjin First Central Hospital's Eastern Transplantation Center's website shows statistics that the hospital performed 533 cases of liver transplants in 2005. The average waiting time for transplant patients was 2 weeks. So, in the USA, the country with the most developed transplantation system in the world, what is the waiting time like?
The United States has 120 million registered donors and a well-developed national internet-based donation system. Even so, the U.S. Department of Health reported in 2007 that the average waiting time for liver and kidney transplants was 2 to 3 years. I will give you an example. The former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney said in a report in 2012 that in order to get a heart for transplant surgery, he waited for nearly 2 years to get a suitable organ. Think about it. The Vice President in the United States needed to wait for more than 2 years for an organ transplant. But in China, it takes only 2 to 3 or even 1 to 2 weeks. And the fastest case was 4 hours. To investigate this, we did not just analyze the data on the internet, but we actually called the organ transplant centers in mainland China ourselves.
Subject: nurse on duty at the Liver Transplantation Department in Shengya, second hospital affiliated to Zhongnan University. Time: March 19th, 2015.
喂，你好，请问你齐海志在吗？
您是哪一位？
我就说你们那里现在做肝移植要等多长时间？要不要等啊？
短的话就几天吧，长的话可能2个星期以上吧。
2个星期以上？
不一定，有的时候几天，
有的时候几天就可以做，是吗？
对对对。
An average waiting time of 1 to 2 weeks is already inconceivable. But the investigation uncovered something that's even more unbelievable. There was a so-called emergency transplant in China's organ transplant system. In China's registration of the liver transplant report of 2006, data was collected from 8,486 cases of liver transplant in 29 organ transplantation centers. During the period from April 6, 2005 to December 31st, 2006, 4,331 cases of those were noted as either emergency or not. There were as many as 1,150 cases that were marked as emergency liver transplants, accounting for 26.6% of the total